in this situation. I am going to ask you guys, who presumably all work with JavaScript in your day-to-day life, to see what happens if you turn it off. So the title of this talk is JavaScript minus JavaScript plus Star Wars. This is me. I work for a company called Rent the Runway. We basically rent extremely fancy dresses to people who might want to wear a dress only once. The reason that I think that Star Wars is a great lens to view the world is that it contains a lot of contradictions within it. It's a universe that has interstellar travel and human cloning, but not Wi-Fi or birth control. You know, whatever. But the theme, I think, is a really genuinely good one, which is that you should always use your powers for good. And I think everyone in this room has powers. So let's listen to a little bit of advice from a wise figure on how to use that power you have. Oh. Oops. I have no volume. Could that be? Okay, Yoda basically would only like to tell you that once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Really, words to live by. So I wanna ask a question. Does your website work without JavaScript? Adam, what website do you work on most of the time? All right, let's see. If you've never done this before, yeah, it's happening, guys. Oof. All right. So the internet is we're going on a journey to a galaxy far, far away where the JavaScript is turned off. Boku.com? All right. Hey, you know, this isn't so bad. I'm picking up what you're putting down. All right, Adam, do you have some other website provider maybe? All right, let's see Squarespace here. So Squarespace, okay, this isn't great. Let's look at some of their customer websites though, because I feel like that's the real thing to judge by. Ooh, I can't access anything here, but they say that the Rodarte website, these aren't links, by the way, anymore. So Rodarte is a great fashion brand. Clearly I like fashion a lot. I work for a fashion tech company. Oh. Well, these models are very beautiful, aren't they? They're lovely, lovely ladies. Okay, so now that I've publicly shamed, Adam or Squarespace rather, can somebody in the audience tell me a website that maybe they work on or they like? Want to check it out? What is that? Scotch.io. Okay, good one. All right, let's see. I hope you're embarrassing yourself instead of some poor strangers here. Beautiful. Hey, all of this works and I can click on this. No, I've got JavaScript turned off, so these effects must just be happening with CSS. I think this is a pretty good example of a working website. So why would you ever do this though? Like what I just did, that's a pretty aberrant thing to do, isn't it? Turning off JavaScript. And if we actually look at it, only something like maybe 1% to 2% of users actually are browsing with JavaScript disabled. And I'll return to why some of the reasons why somebody might do that later, but let's just say it's an extreme edge case and not the sort of thing that I would worry about. Except, I came into Rent the Runway to work on basically, it's an e-commerce site. We have these grids. And one of the things that this page used to have as a problem was that everything loaded in via AJAX. And then once rendering was completed on the client, we would often figure out that our cache was invalid, and so we would kick off another AJAX request. And this was pretty messy. But I have some really wonderful coworkers who worked with me on this project. One of them is in the audience right now, Will Summers. And one of the things that we knew that we wanted when we were embarking on this big refactor was to make our site work without JavaScript enabled. At a company like Rent the Runway, despite my sort of awesome costume and cool lightsaber, I'm not Darth Vader up there. I'm more like this dude here. a grunt, trying to get by, trying to make the best decisions possible, and find the evil rebel alliance, shoot them down. So sort of on that journey, one of the things that I've noticed is that functionality that is implemented only in JavaScript is very, very brittle. Perhaps you've seen somebody do something like this. A scroll bar on a website that is not using the native scrolling behavior. It's doing something like this. Let's see if we can see do you see this guy right here? The video is a little bit small, but basically, just so that somebody could style the way that scroll bar looked, they re-implemented scrolling behavior completely in JavaScript. This is the Adidas website. So do you think the spacebar works to scroll when you have implemented custom scrolling? How do you think that works for somebody who maybe can't use a mouse to access pages? Even, how do you think that works on a mobile device? Probably not that well. So ignoring accessibility, I think, is a sure path to the dark side. And that's one thing that happens when we choose to re-implement features that exist in browsers using JavaScript. There are a lot of people out there who are using screen readers. There are people who are on mobile devices that are using the JavaScript APIs in outdated ways. And if you are choosing to do all of the work of re-implementing something that exists out there in the world, you are probably closing off access to your site to those people. And if you say that you don't care about them, well, guys, that is the dark side right there. Modals, right? And there's like a dictionary definition of modal out there, or at least a Wikipedia definition. For me, it's sort of anything where you pop up another page on top of your web page. And obviously, the only way to do this is JavaScript. Also, project managers love modals. Anyone remember how Twitter switched to modals recently for like an individual tweet page? It wasn't probably the most popular decision among web developers, but I bet their project managers thought it was great. Okay, well, modals, they don't work without JavaScript. And one of the really bad things that this does is that you have functionality on your website that cannot be accessed through a URL. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be the case. You can use the history API. And server-side, like if your routing on the server is set up to return a legitimate response to that, then that's functionality you'll be able to find in the future. You can send people to it. People can copy and paste the link. They can bookmark it. I'm going to now sort of publicly shame renttherunway.com again. This is something we wanted to let people engage with our site in a little bit of a deeper way and favorite items. It's a great idea for an e-commerce site. So this was the way to make a new list of favorites. That was it. You were on this page and you hit something and it scrolled to the side. Now, this is not resourceful. This is not something that somebody can send a URL to somebody else to do. Basically, the only way to get to this place is to have a full version of what, in fact, was our old Backbone app up and running and for all of it to work. Good routing is your only hope of creating a maintainable website. If you do not have a URL that points to something, your users are not going to be able to find it. Your users are not going to be able to keep track of it. And you, as a developer, when you move off your single-page Backbone app, when next year we have all decided that we're done with React or Ember and we're moving on to the new special unicorn framework that's going to solve all of our problems, at that point, you don't want the legacy features that you haven't ported yet to be only accessible by spinning up a full version of whatever page they were on in the first place to render, to run with error-free. You're going to have to maintain that forever if this is the only way to do it. If you have a URL that somebody can go to and that URL works, then that functionality will have a much better chance of standing the test of time, such as that is for websites, those ephemeral things. Still no audio? Gosh. Okay. URLs are your only hope for finding content again and finding functionality again. And you should, even when you're writing JavaScript day to day, never forget them. Never stop using them. A bad feeling is what I have when I see something, when I see that I have gone to a different page on a website, a page that is doing something else, and the URL hasn't changed. Huge red flag. Yes, websites that don't have proper routing are truly a sarlacc pit. You will be cast into it and digested for 20,000 years. Unless you're Boba Fett, you're probably not. You're not that favored by the universe. Also, another reason to have a website that works in some sense without JavaScript is the robots. Our friends, the robots. They don't understand human behavior. Robots are not as good at navigating websites as we are. We have a lot of visual information, and we are also humans who make websites, which are often used by other humans, but not exclusively. One of the main robots that you should be thinking of when you are developing a website is the Googlebot, also the other search crawlers out there. There has been significant advances in the last couple of years for these bots being able to crawl sites that do not have any content rendered in at the beginning. They render all their content in through Ajax later. But it is by no means 100%. I've often had people complain about their SEO when their site has no content in the HTML. How do you expect a robot to understand something that isn't well-formatted semantic HTML? We have all of the semantics in that HTML so that robots can understand it in addition to humans. It's just a technical thing, but it will really help your happiness and that of probably those business people who want to ask you why your site is ranking 10th for your own name. So here's a question. Do you know when you have a JavaScript error on one of your users' pages? Have you, how on earth would you know? You may think that, you've taken care of everything. You have some error monitoring in there, probably in a little script tag running JavaScript. So if a JavaScript execution is blocked on a page, then how on earth is your error monitoring going to let you know that a user is having a bad experience? There's a paradox here that we can't address. JavaScript is not going to get us out of a JavaScript hole. If it's like the incompleteness theorem that no system can fully contain itself. So you should never rely on JavaScript to be to deliver all functionality to a user. If you, for instance, have a page that is just a long text, you're a news site. All that you really need to do is deliver 10 paragraphs worth of HTML to somebody. If you take the work on of rendering that content on the server, you will know when something bad happens, assuming that you're set up with just the bare minimum standard of monitoring. If you have pushed that work instead to clients, when something goes wrong, they are probably inaccessible to you. And it could be for a wide variety of reasons, including that they can't support, they don't support the plugins and the JavaScript API usage that is required by your error monitoring. So be careful. I'm so sad that these clips don't work. Does anyone want to watch a completely silent version of Darth Vader choking a guy to death? I kind of do too, right? Yes, and let's see if I can say it with him. You have failed me for the last time, Admiral Piet. Yeah, it's really great. It's actually Admiral Osel. I totally misspoke. Admiral Piet's the one who just got the promotion. Yeah. So how do you do this, though? We do so much work with JavaScript, and we do a lot of work because JavaScript, despite its reputation, actually is a pretty good tool. It runs in most places. It's relatively easy to learn. I notice a lot that when people are starting out in web development, the first instinct is to just write a lot of JavaScript because it's so accessible, because it's so easy to run. And to get sort of the amazing benefits of JavaScript and of web frameworks that we've come to expect, where you're writing your behavior next to your markup, which is a great thing because those things can't be separated in a modern application context. So how do we actually get the best of both worlds here? Well, one of the secrets, I would say, is to have, like, whatever your API is, have it respond both with JSON when appropriate and with HTML when it isn't. So one of the things that we do, this code has actually changed slightly, but this is a bit of sample code from that page that I showed you earlier that we had to redo. We're React, so the state of the page can be pretty easily represented as a JSON object. But we don't only want to send JSON objects. We don't want to push all of the computation of rendering to clients every time. So on something like a first page load, we will sort of wrap up that JSON in a nice packaging of HTML, send it down, at which point React can load, and we get the cute, fast interactions. We get we get a working JavaScript web app. And then only when client-side action has changed that state, do we respond with JSON so that at that point, React can take over rendering in the client. And this, I think, is a pretty effective strategy, which you can probably do. I know that Ember has server-side rendering options. I know that it's one of the upsides of React is that you can do server-side rendering. If you are in an older framework, I honestly don't know what your options are, but maybe you could be the hero who pushes that landscape further. Be a hero. Yes. And I think one of the reasons to do this is a bit of an old clip from the New York Times. This is like an initial page load. You guys have all seen this a lot, right? Like, watch that content grow. This is annoying when you're on a desktop computer and you know exactly what's going to happen. If you are on a mobile device, I think in particular, content loading in afterwards and pushing the positioning of other elements away from where it was initially is a terrible experience for a user. They're afraid to click at everything because they don't know whether you've put some ad there and they're suddenly going to be like on a website for, guinea pig village is. It could happen to you. Another amazing, yes. How your users want to be as fast as Han. They want to shoot first. They do. They want to just bypass whatever page you've sent them to. If it's like a page full of links, they want to get to those links. They want to click on them really fast. They don't want to wait for everything to load in. And if you are making that hard for them, you are not being very kind. You are not being kind to your users and to, in fact, yourself, because if you think that this sort of AJAX rendering is bad for a human, it's really bad for the headless browser running your acceptance tests, isn't it? Hope you have one of those. Okay, so this is a little bit of a summary of the ranting that I could do just infinitely about things that we do in JavaScript that we shouldn't. If you have infinite scrolling, you should still have a more link. If you have a modal, please back it up with a URL. You also totally have the option to have a sort of a real page that really loads, has a route and everything, and then you can just render that into your modal. Again, best of both worlds. If you have a form, often I think it's very easy to just write your forms as div soup, keeping track of state totally in JavaScript. Oh my God, there is no reason to do this. If you keep your forms as a form tag, if you still give them a method and an action attribute, then they will submit even if somebody has a JavaScript execution error on their page. And they will hopefully at that point still get a nice server-side response. So you're going to have to respond to form data properly anyway. You're going to have to deal with that client and server interaction anyway. Why not make it a little bit safer by taking JavaScript out of the equation? Never implement functionality that browsers implement better. Scrolling is a great example of this, but there's also stuff like select boxes. Okay, so maybe you've done a new select box in JavaScript. It looks really great. You're very proud of yourself. Now, do you want to implement, when you enter in a character to scroll through a select box? Are you going to implement all of the accessibility features that exist for people who are not, who need screen readers and such? The more work that you take upon yourself, the more exposure to failure that you are creating. And also the more work that belongs to you rather than to highly paid people at Chrome and Apple who are probably doing, who are probably more motivated to deal with these issues than you are. Also, a site that only works in JavaScript is probably a site that is very hard to run acceptance tests on. This is something that I've seen again and again, brittle, easily failing acceptance tests that are always waiting for the AJAX request to finish. They're spending 2-minute sleep cycles where they're waiting for the AJAX request to finish. It really sucks. And when you are trying to get a deploy out and you know that those failures are fake, you know it in your heart. But again, ignoring your acceptance tests is another way to the dark side. You have one job, probably, if you were in this room. If this is not your job, then I apologize, but also consider it as a hobby, perhaps. Your job is to render comprehensible HTML quickly. That is pretty much it. If JavaScript is helping you achieve that goal, then you're using it right. If JavaScript is getting in the way of you doing that, then you have to rethink your uses of it. This is by no means, obviously, a blanket statement about not using JavaScript. Hansel is mad at you, probably for good reason. And so you also could totally ignore everything that I have told you. Maybe people who don't have JavaScript running on their browsers are people that you don't want to serve up content to. Maybe you're a publisher, and you really think that if you can't serve ads to people, and if you can't track them, then you don't want them on your site. Well, I understand that perspective. I don't agree with it, and I do think that it makes you evil. But you do have freedom of choice. You can choose to do the wrong thing. It's up to you. You can go back to your job and just burn it all down. Yeah. Maybe you want to be part of the dark side. It's the only Force Awakens gif I have in here. I haven't memorized all the quotes yet. It's really hard. So this is, fortunately, we actually don't. This is one where the audio not being on is a really good thing because we would have to listen to this, but an immortal quote, "Only a Sith deals in absolutes, Anakin." Yeah, that's an absolute too, but okay. Well, you know what I did with JavaScript that I didn't even really need to do with JavaScript on this page? These stars, I did those with JavaScript because I wanted stars. I kind of wanted them to change every time. I didn't want it to be an image. I wanted it to work on any resolution and stuff. So I made there's I think 1,000 stars that are each tiny little divs with 1 pixel by 1 pixel. Completely unnecessary. But you know why I sometimes do bad things with JavaScript? It's because it's easy and it's fun. And there's an immediate joy in it that you really don't get with a lot of other programming languages. So don't take any of this as, again, an absolute prohibition against doing anything. Maybe you are the one person in the world who actually has a really good use case to re-implement custom scrolling. In that case, I support you. But just think about a universe where websites modern, good, cool websites work without JavaScript. We often say mobile first. Well, JavaScript, I think, should really be the last thing that comes to your page. You should first focus on writing good HTML. It's something that we often forget, and I think that if you go to conferences, there's always going to be somebody telling you to write more semantic HTML. Well, guys, that's because it is a lesson that we have not truly absorbed. Then you know, work on your CSS, work on your styling, and only then use JavaScript for what it's good for. Fast interactions, immediate updates to the state of a page. Don't use it for the things that it's bad at, like rendering all of the content on a page or managing form data. You can do better. And I think that is the end of my little rant about why a bunch of JavaScript programmers should turn JavaScript off on their sites. I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you disagree with anything, please feel free to fight me. Hey, Adam.
Hello. Is this when we fight? No, I think they.
I would never fight Adam.
This is what they used to call progressive enhancement, right?
Yeah, I believe progressive enhancement, isomorphism.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a fancy one.
I wanted to keep this kind of buzzword free.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, it's too late as we're synergizing at this very moment. I had a couple Star Wars related questions for you. Who's your favorite Star Wars robot?
I actually would have to say Evie, the evil assassin robot droid from Jabba's palace.
Oh.
I think actually the torture droid.
So much going on in Jabba's
Yeah.
palace. And it's not like, is that a palace? By whose standards is Jabba's palace a palace?
I think by Tatooine standards.
That's fair. So here's one. What did Yoda say about errors in JavaScript?
My gosh, what did he say?
Throw or throw not. There is no try catch.
Guys, clap for that. Clap. That was really good. I couldn't come up with that.
And so this is kind of a serious question, but also a joke. Which is like, so as I'm watching your talk, which I've now had the pleasure of seeing twice, it's like, I feel like a lot of people like to be like, well, mine's not a website, I have a web app, so I can use JavaScript to like do everything. My whole app is window.alerts in sequence. Like, is there a line in your opinion?
Yeah, I do think that if you are truly a web app, like if you are Google Maps, for instance, you have a fairly good argument that you need JavaScript to be enabled for that to work. You're just taking on a lot more responsibility when you're doing that. Also, Google Maps used to work without JavaScript enabled. Like, it totally did. And there's always going to be fallback options. The question is how hard you want to commit to those fallback options. Right. And I also think, though, that there's another thing where people are like, well, we don't want users to have to reload the entire page every time they click on a link. We're a web app now. No, you're only a web app if you're something like a game. If you have some sort of state that is not necessarily connected to or like the resource that you are pointing at.
Couldn't be connected to a URL.
Couldn't be connected to a URL.
Interesting.
Yep.
I have one more Star Wars question joke.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned headless browsers. Mm-hmm. Did you know there's a Star Wars movie about that, right?
Headless browsers?
Yeah. The first Star Wars, the Phantom JS Menace.
The Phantom JS Menace. Yeah, guys, also, I went through this entire talk without making an EmpireJS Strikes Back joke.
Next time.
Next time.
Next time. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Pleasure.